Hey, happy Fedora Friday. It is Friday. Wow, we made it, right? We made it. Um, I mean, I don't know exactly. My voice sounds worse than even yesterday, and I kind of predicted that. But I still got to be doing it up and going out and doing my best to try to bring you guys, another hat chat here. I can't believe these things are really stacking up here in terms of number, right? We are number 16, sweet 16. And I couldn't think of a better way to spend my Friday morning than with you fine folks. Yeah, I just can't believe that yeah, time is flying by, right? I mean, that's it just makes me happier that I finally got this series started. Again, if you just joined us, I mean, I started this hat series kind of as it's been a long time coming. I've been watching channels like Kevin's Hats and Guitars, Passion for Hats. Now Johnny's just started a channel, amongst others that I probably just can't recall right now. But just one of those things where I've gotten so much from those channels that I just knew that I had to like do something only to kind of share my individual hat journey, right? It's like a way of documenting. It's essentially a video based diary, right? To kind of give you a sneak peek into my life and share my life with you and my journey, right? Because I'm still on this journey as long as I'm above ground. And that way we can kind of share our journeys together. I really wanted this to be a lot more interactive, and so far I've been really pleased this punch. It really has been kind of just a like I said, a true passion project. Yes, maybe at some point this channel can get monetized, but for now, like it's already given me everything I wanted, and essentially right from the start. So, in terms of keeping this going, I am gonna, again, like I mentioned before, I will go and take this as far as my energy levels will allow me to, and because I'm having a lot of fun. It's really like intrinsically motivating to be doing these live chats. And then sharing some of my hats, right? Because even though I said that it's more about kind of like that the hats are kind of just a straw man, really, to kind of get a conversation started, right? Maybe a nice little thumbnail, but ultimately the whole purpose of this YouTube channel goes beyond you just seeing my hat. Maybe that's to what got you hooked, but really here is, who's the man behind the hat, right? How did he get to this point? Where's he going next, right? And let me, I relate to this gentleman in whatever other way. I don't know. Essentially this is kind of like, it can be whatever you want it to be. I know I have ideas, but it doesn't mean that those ideas won't change and evolve. Kind of like our hat collections, right? You know, uh, Again, if you couldn't tell, I don't have a script. These are not like, that's the reason why I do these live. Is that I know there's a lot of YouTube channels. I think Kevin's one of them, where uh, it doesn't have, it's a lot of folks will do content that's not live stream because they don't want to do things on the go. I'm kind of the opposite. I feel like I come across a little bit better when I'm speaking extemporaneously, even though I do a lot of the ums and the ahs. Um, but but when I find that I have to do a recording, I just know this from either past attempts to do content like that, or from presentations that I've given, at like professional conferences. Um, Usually when I get out there and I know I'm not live in front of somebody, it's really hard to get away from the script. And I come across as very robotic, and I'm not a robot, you know. If everybody wanted to, see somebody reading a script, they'd watch a Robert De Niro movie or Al Pacino, somebody that knows how to do it right. I'm nowhere near as skilled. So I feel that the live format really gives me an opportunity to just engage a lot more, right? And have this be a lot more organic. So yeah, and if you followed yesterday, you know that I kind of this week has been filled with baseball, right? I mean, every week while the season's going on is filled with baseball in my life, but this week was unique in that my favorite team, the New York Mets, came to the DC area to face off with their division rival, the Washington Nationals, right? So usually the tradition goes. Uh, we will have a bunch of Mets fans in the area that will pack Nats Park and try to root on the Mets because, well, a lot of them are kind of probably more former New Yorkers, kind of like myself, that really don't get a chance to go out to New York as often as they'd like to go catch a game at Citi Field. So it was a lot of fun. One of the 2 days, I think it was the day before yesterday, was a formal gathering, a DC takeover game by the DC Mets, which is a local chapter of New York Mets fans in the DC area. And what happens is we have a gentleman, Joe, who leads that group and manages to get a discount on tickets for everybody. As you know, if you've been to a ball game, even if you haven't been to a ball game, you can imagine that inflation is reared its ugly head in terms of ticket prices, just like it has everything else. And it really is tough to kind of like get a good seat for a decent price. There are discounts available, so you can get a lot cheaper seat. Than the ones that we typically sit at with the DC Mets. But you got to be way out there. It's not like it's terrible because the DC Mets, I mean the Nats ballpark, I think because it's a newer ballpark, relatively speaking, they've designed it in such a way that there's really not too many bad seats where you can't enjoy the game. But my buddy Joe just happens to love the good seats, kind of like I do, only because again, I don't go to that many games. So when I do, it becomes like I'm willing to put forth a little bit extra money to sit in a better area, just to kind of get a little bit closer to the game. And usually we try to sit by the third base side, right? So that would be the visitor side. If you're not familiar with baseball, usually the home team will be along the first base side. The away team would be on the third base side. So, if you're a Mets fan, you're probably going to try to get yourself, if you're able to, get a ticket on the third base side and preferably as close to the dugout. Well, some people do prefer the outfield. They just feel like they have a better chance of snagging a baseball maybe in the outfield. But what have you, usually what you'll see is the visiting team would be, trying to be seated. The fans will be seated along the third base side. So, I got to really spend some good time with my fellow Mets fans. And this time was actually unique. It's actually, I think, the first time that the Mets were in town, and I got to go and visit and attend every single game. And I did so this time with my son. My son lives in DC proper, also a very huge Mets fan. That's one of those things that he inherited from me. And, very passionate, almost too passionate, right? So sometimes, we'll get in the middle of a conversation and then the voices rise, right? So I go to 0 to New York, he goes 0 to New York. And and then we kind of look like we're arguing, but we kind of are. But it's not like, I think we know it's not gonna get too escalated. But I think when strangers might pass by, they might see like a lively discussion and like, ooh, what's going on there? So, at that point, I kind of have to use I got to get into dad mode and be like, okay, let's just calm down, you know. This is not that important. It's in the end, we both love the Mets, and we may have disagreements, just like normal people do about what we want to see happen. But it doesn't necessarily make us wrong or right. It just makes us somebody, folks that happen to have different opinions. What's funny is that the big discussion, I'm going to call it, the big discussion this time was Major League Baseball's proposal for a realignment of the teams and the divisions. And that's something that it's something that happens every so often, because remember, baseball, just like any sport, even though it's a sport, it's also a business, right? You have ownership that's usually composed of either one primary majority owner or a group. And essentially, we're talking about some very rich individuals, usually billionaires, right? So, I mean, I think everybody knows Mark Cuban as a billionaire owner of the Dallas Maverick franchise in basketball. The Mets just happen to be owned by billionaire hedge fund owner Steve Cohen, who purchased the team, I believe, in 2022 or right around that time. And it really was kind of a pivotal moment in the franchise, in that, it gave the Mets fans renewed hope, right? That the Mets will be now dedicated to fielding a winning team. It hasn't really happened yet at the championship level. I think last year is as far as we've gotten in terms of getting to that championship, where we kind of made it to the league championship game, where we ultimately lost to the Dodgers, who ultimately won the World Series. So at the very least, the Mets were heartened by the fact that, the only team that beat us was the team that was eventually won it all. So, what that you can't really get much more excited, especially if you're a Mets fan recently, than that. We kind of really had our first taste of success, of real success, with that season. So, yeah, I mean, again, some folks are very absolutist. They're like, if we don't win it all, then we didn't win anything. And I don't know if I agree with that. By all means, last season, the Mets were playing with house money, right? We were a team that wasn't expected to go as far as we did. And we're like, well, why not us, right? That's kind of like the mantra of the underdog. Why not us? Why can't we win? We're good enough. The Mets on paper are a much better team than they were last year. And ultimately they may finish with a better record. But I think at this juncture, last season, we were playing the best baseball of any team in baseball, right? So I think after June last season, the Mets were the best team in baseball. It's not so much this year. This year it was more like we started off really, really strong, and now we're kind of late. We're like we've let go. We are no longer in first place by a decent margin. Now we're kind of just fighting for a playoff spot, and I'm hoping we make it, right. At this point, we play so sloppy that we're like, okay, we may have already, like, this could have already have been the nail in the coffin, but I think we do have just under 40 games left in the season. So if we go on a really, really strong run, we could cement our playoff position. And who knows, maybe we even win the division. The Phillies seem pretty strong. Shout out to Philly. Again, I talked about Philly yesterday, and my affection for that city, in addition to cities like Baltimore. Another city that I think I might have mentioned on the previous live stream is Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to Newark. I'm trying to remember if I have a hat in my collection that comes from a Newark, New Jersey hat shop. But I did mention that there was a haberdashery that did exist in downtown Newark, not so far from the Providence the Prudential Center, and my disappointment that that hat shop was no longer in existence. I believe you can still see the remnants of that hat shop still existing in the existing store that exists there, but I think it's at Borsellino Stetson on the sign or something like that. But when you go out there, you can kind of tell that it's no longer a proper haberdashery and more kind of a general apparel store that kind of caters to more kind of the urban look. Either way, it was a little disappointing. Maybe I should have just poked my head a little further and actually went into the store. But I guess at that point, I was already disappointed enough that I was like, okay, that store no longer exists. It was a family member that grew up in the Newark area that mentioned it. When I brought my hat over to his place, he mentioned, he's like, hey, if you're in Newark again, check out the that haberdashery. He was convinced. He was in his 80s. He was convinced that the haberdashery was still there. But it goes to show you kind of assume sometimes that these things, that these businesses will last forever. But like I always mention, nothing lasts forever, right? Just like the November Rain song by Guns N' Roses. Anyway, it was still fun. It's still fun to kind of chase that history. There's still so many hat shops that I haven't gotten a chance to visit, even in my hometown of New York City, right? I was talking to Morgan the other day about potentially meeting up with her at Bencraft, Hatters in Brooklyn, New York, who's still going. And Steve, the proprietor of Bencraft, is a super gentleman. I've come across. I don't think I've had a chance to speak to him directly, but I have seen he's very active on the in the hat community. Besides being a super nice guy that I've heard many a time from by reputation, and I've seen it in his interactions with my fellow hat nerds I believe on the Fedora Lounge and also in the Facebook groups. So shout out to Steve. So if you make it out to Bencraft before I do, say hi to Steve. Hopefully I'll get to meet him in person one day. And Steve, if you're watching this, I will make it out there. I apologize for not having done so. It's a little bit kind of a shameful for me to admit that I'm a Brooklyn boy and I haven't made it out to Bencraft, but I will right that wrong. So Steve, don't be in a hurry to go close your shop up. It seems like you're doing great business, but the looks of it, you will continue to do that because it does seem like you are an ambassador, yet another ambassador that we have in this small hat community of ours. So shout out to Bencraft, shout out to Steve. I will make it out there one day. It's just a matter of time. I got to do it. I mean, it's from Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn. I got to do it. Anyway, shout out to Brooklyn. So lots of baseball this past week. It's been jam-packed. Again, always enjoy reconnecting with my son. He's just got a lot going on. Besides being a YouTuber, he is, working constantly and has a puppy, has a girlfriend. So between all that and being in his mid-20s or so, he's got a lot going on. And I told him, I said, just, drop your old man a line, maybe, come over for a dinner, be happy to have you. But if you can't, no pressure. I always try to keep it no pressure with him because, he's just one of those, I think he's inherited from me where in terms of multitasking is not, especially in our brains, right? So now I'm just kind of revealing another thing about myself is that, and I think that this is something that's very relatable. Human beings, and I know beyond human beings, Luke, myself, again, I'll refer to myself in the third person, if you'll indulge me, I'm a bad multitasker. I'm just somebody that, first of all, my focus can wane really easily, right? I mean, I think that right away from, from my style here, right? I mean, I get off topic really easily because that's just the way my brain works. I'll start off thinking one thing, and in the process of speaking it, something else gets in my brain that I just have to get out. It's like a compulsion, and that will drift me off topic. And I think that's one of the like I said, I think that's a gift and a curse. Sometimes people enjoy that. They enjoy watching me like vacillate from going from topic to something completely different. And my brain is connected, but the viewer, the receiver of my conversation, if you will, are like, how did we get on this topic? And I think that's me kind of, the gift of that. And maybe somebody like pops in mid conversation and like, did I mean, I see the hat, but what are we talking about? Baseball? What are we talking about? Like, psychology? What are we talking about? Watches? Again, we are a compendium of different interests and ideas. Each of us as individuals, and I'm no different. Um, and besides being a compendium of all those ideas and thoughts, my ability to effectively convey those ideas and thoughts in a nice logical way, that's going to vary. It's going to be a lot different than, let's say, Kevin over at Kevin's Hats and Guitars and Passion for Hats, and Johnny and anybody else that does YouTube that I can't think of, at the moment, but that I watch consistently. And I enjoy because when I consume it, I can relate, right? So there are things that I see that are very similar to me, and I like that because everybody kind of likes that, that similar to me, right? It's like birds of a feather flock together, right? But what's the contrast? The birds of a feather flock together, right? Opposites attract, right? And those are both two laws that are equally valid. They're not necessarily, in seemingly contradictory, right? I can definitely see that, but that exists, right? Nobody, like, I don't think you're gonna see too many folks that will agree, that will disagree with both of those, right? And they'll probably more likely agree with both, but they just say it depends, right? The whole "it depends" rule. Is like, because you ask somebody, you'll say, "Do you believe in that birds of a feather flock together, or do you believe in opposites attract?" And they're like, "Well, both, right? It just depends on what we're talking about." But everybody knows those two are equally valid. And that's why it gets a little psychological here, and a little psychological food here for thought. So, it's like I said, life is a great journey. And I'm just happy that I'm able to undertake that journey, kind of like my way, right? Like, it's very, very Frank Sinatra. Even if it's not been my way all the time, it felt mostly my way. Right? You can't always get what you want, right? The whole famous, Rolling Stone song. Uh, but there is still satisfaction, right? Yeah, yeah, you see that? Uh, sometimes every once in a while I'll make it happen. I'll create something really witty and maybe make you smile. But yeah, even though you don't always get what you want, there can still be satisfaction. He's like, sometimes, I think in general, we human beings don't like surprises, but we can usually roll with the punches. We're pretty resilient. I think we're a lot more resilient than we give ourselves credit for, right? We were just talking about, great resilient moments in human history when we've gone under and had some really bad things happen. We talked about Pearl Harbor, I think, yesterday. We talked about the Kennedy assassination yesterday, and obviously we also talked about 9/11. Who, one of those three events that I got actually a chance to witness, and be alive and well to witness and deal with firsthand. But what do we learn about all three of those, tragedies, as well as all the other tragic events that happen in between, and probably will happen after, is that human beings are resilient and we find a way to go on. Right? Those of us that don't, necessarily perish in those accidents, the folks that remain, right? Those of us that managed to live through, we remember those incidents and we memorialize them, not because we like thinking of unhappy thoughts and unhappy events, but we know that it's important to remember those events. So shout out to all those first responders, I like, just like I did yesterday, that came to the scene of that major tragedy, and we will never forget, right? But anyway, hat chat number 16, right? Sweet 16. And I couldn't think of a better hat for Sweet 16, man. We talked about, like, somebody asked a really great question on one of the Facebook groups that I'm a member of, and I like that. I like that format. I think once I get through my hat collection, or maybe before that, maybe I'll start just doing this to kind of provide that straw man theme for the stream. Maybe posing a question that maybe I'll go into detail on, at least to start the conversation going. And maybe if we have anybody here joining the live, they can add their input. Again, the major point of this channel is not Luke. Even though it says Good Luke's, it really is about all the folks that want to, all the fellow hat nerds and budding hat nerds that just are tuning into Good Luke's and want to share with me, their individual hat journey and their opinions and their experiences, and their story, because that's just as important, maybe even more important than my story. So back to the inspiration, I guess, was this question that was posed by a gentleman. I don't even remember his name, but I think it was on Hats and Guitars was where I first saw this post. And then the question was, what, and I'll paraphrase, what's the most important detail that you look for, right? That one should look for, or you look for in a new hat, right? So the question is, what's the most important detail, or what's the most important consideration that you look for in a new hat? And I had the answer. I couldn't, like, stray away. So I shared my opinion, which was, the most important detail that you could look for, or that I look for, the most important thing that I look for, and that's important to me about a hat in my hat collection, is how the hat makes me feel. I just like the style of the hat, the age of the hat, even the condition of the hat. Although they're related, they might have a say in that process, but ultimately, the most important thing that for me, for Luke, about any hat that's in his collection, and that will determine whether it stays in my collection, is how the hat makes me feel when I put it on. And I couldn't think of a more pertinent example than this Fedora right here. There's so much I can, like, talk about, but I think the hat speaks for itself. Like, when you saw this hat, is like, I don't really, I don't even need to go into an explanation about why, when I saw this hat, I had to have it, right? I mean, this is, needless to say, this is the loudest hat in my collection, by far, right? If you see my collection so far, right, this is hat chat number 16. And I know I wore my Knox Tom and Jerry several times, but more or less, you've probably seen at least, I've been in double digits in terms of the hats that I've shared in my collection. I've already gotten to double digits. And I trust that you will believe me that this is the loudest hat in my collection. This is a hat that, like, I don't wear as often outside, only because I got to be really in that mode, right? It is a hat that's very like I feel like sometimes I need to get a zoot suit for this hat, right? Like, this is very zoot suity, right? I completely made that word up, but this is a very zoot suity hat, shout out to my folks that still wear the zoot suits. Talk about also, like, um, pertinent events. Again, the zoot suit is an ode to the zoot suit. Besides the zoot suit movement, but there's the zoot suit riots, right? Actually, also a very great album and a very great song by the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, talking about, like, that new swing music that came out, I think, in the 90s, the 90s or the early aughts. Shout out to the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and the Big Bad Voodoo Daddies, and all the folks that kind of brought that like neo swing music back, that big band music, the Brian Seltzer Band. I'm sure there are a lot others. The Reverend Horton Heat, who I gotten to see live. Really great guys. If you don't know the Reverend Horton Heat, they're kind of like more of like a fusion of like big band, swing, rockabilly. So if you're a fan of any of that stuff, and if you like a nice modern fusion of that kind of sound, that jumpy big band sound, check out the Reverend Horton Heat, who tours really really extensively, at least in the U.S. and hopefully internationally, because I really hope that a band like that, I know there would be appreciated. I just don't know. Not every band tours internationally, but hopefully the Reverend does. But if you happen to be here in the States, you can rest assured that the Reverend Horton Heat is probably, if they haven't already been, they're going to probably come to a city near you. Well worth checking out. Again, I get no sponsorship for any of this stuff. I'm just somebody that happened to discover the Reverend Horton Heat through my network. And wow, I've seen them twice already, and they were at like smaller venues. That's the nice thing. Like, you don't have to go to someplace like the Capital One Arena here in DC to check out a Reverend Horton Heat show. I feel like they could probably pack one. That's how like well loved they are. But the Reverend Horton Heat is a band that I've seen at two separate venues here in the greater DC area, and they were both like smaller, more intimate, but still sizable enough to accommodate the crowd. But just fantastic shows. Like, you cannot like bop, to that music. Like, he is, by that, you can already tell like he's a big Johnny Cash fan. I think he even covered a Johnny Cash song. I just can't recall it right now because I'm not like that much of a Reverend Horton Heat nerd. Just like anything, I'm not an expert, but I just dig the music. Like I say, even if you don't even own one of their albums, go out to one of their shows, and I guarantee you, if you don't love it, you at least appreciate it in some respect. And I think you love it, though. I mean, if you dig like that big band, that high energy kind of that kind of sound, kind of like Cherry Poppin' Daddies, kind of like the Big Bad Voodoo Daddies, kind of like the Brian Seltzer Band, you owe it to yourself to check out the Reverend Horton Heat. Super show, super great, very fun. And they have a guy with one of the members plays the upright bass. I kind of like have grown to have a sweet spot for folks that play the upright bass. I don't know if you guys remember a gentleman that was in American Idol recently. He was like a finalist on the American Idol. His name was Casey Abrams. Casey Abrams was a guy that also played the upright bass. He played anything, I think, string, but including the guitar, I believe the fiddle. But he also was known for he was I believe a Wisconsin native, is a Wisconsin native, and played the upright bass and did a ridiculously good rendition. Well, he had many good renditions, but he had a great rendition of Nature Boy, and it's like Nat King Cole, Nature Boy. That song, he killed it. And he also did a very great Nirvana rendition, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Also a great Queen rendition, Fat Bottom Girls. I believe he did that with Jack Black. So shout out to Casey Abrams. He's a YouTuber now. I believe he has his own YouTube channel, and he has a group that I can't recall. I think it was called Musical Magic Jukebox or Musical Jukebox. But if you go and you watch them, you will see him as well as another contestant that I believe he was romantically involved with. And I can't remember her name. I think it may be Rachel or Raquel. You guys that are fans of the show could probably tell me. But she's got like a really great tonality to her voice. Kind of like one of those like I don't know if it's Ella Fitzgerald or but again, that kind of little smoky voice. Um, and it just comes out so beautiful, especially when she's jamming with Casey. Anyway, the shout out to her, shout out to Casey Abrams, and all of my upright bass players out there. You guys, like, that's not an easy thing, right? I mean, if you're doing gigs with your upright bass, if you're not kind of well enough, where you have an equipment, you got roadies, that means that you're carrying you're carrying your instrument. You're putting in some work, because that, upright bass is not a small instrument, but it's so worth it, to watch the reaction, at least the way it makes me feel. So shout out to Casey Abrams, shout out to upright bass, and shout out to again, all that big band snappy music that people love. They must have had a passion for it, that they decided that they were going to bring it back. We had Ian Reed, who plays neo folk, right? Folk music is something that, again, I'm not an expert in, but I appreciate the folks that do that neo folk. Again, I'm not as familiar, but I'm kind of using my imagination based on like the musicians, the traditional folk musicians that I'm aware of. Um, I'm going to put Bob Dylan in there. I will put, Simon and Garfunkel in there, and all the other great folk musicians that I'm just not recalling right now. But I dig that sound. I dig the music, and I dig the artistry of it. So, I'm just a big music fan as well. I know that's not going to make me distinctive. Like, who doesn't like music? I mean, if you don't like music, then you're probably not going to like anything. You probably don't like ice cream. I don't care what kind of music you like. Classical music, rap music, any kind of metal music. I find joy in everything. Like, in terms of metal, what is it? The TSO, Trans-Siberian Orchestra. If you haven't seen that show live, see them. I don't care. I mean, it might even be worth like $1 million, but you don't have to pay $1 million. I didn't pay $1 million to watch TSO, but TSO is an amazing show. You could be deaf and enjoy, right? You could have no hearing and enjoy a TSO, Trans-Siberian Orchestra show, because of the lights. The lights are amazing, but if you do happen to be to have your hearing intact, it's even that much more enjoyable, because besides the fact that, again, I'm not a metal music, I'm not I couldn't call myself well, besides an expert or even a fan, because even that's like the stretch. But I do appreciate the sound. I enjoy the electric guitar, and the artistry, the work that goes into that production, right? Besides the light show, the narration, right? There's a gentleman that they have narrating. It's almost like a story. Um, and it's so well integrated. Again, I don't think I owned any of the TSO albums, but my understanding is that that was either one or more of their albums is narrated that way. So this gentleman, who I believe is the same person on the album, has such a voice, right? Like, you want to hear him say, you want to hear him tell you a story, right? Like, be it a Christmas time story, and he has one of those deep voices that, like, kind of like a James Earl Jones, that just penetrates, like, it like hits you right in the lungs, like when you hear that tonality, right? It's just like that baritone, and he might even be lower than that. I don't know. I don't know all the scales. I know that you got the tenor, then you got the baritone, and maybe a double baritone. This gentleman might even be a double baritone, if that even exists. Maybe I made that up. But you music guys can tell me, whether there's such a thing as a double baritone. But if there was one, somebody like James Earl Jones, somebody like this gentleman that narrates the TSO, you would think that that guy has to be a double baritone, because of, again, that deep penetrative voice that he has. But I just find that the stories are that much more. They hit like the kids say these days. It hits different when you hear that voice telling that story, and the story is really compelling in his tonality and in its delivery. So shout out to TSO, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We talked about a lot of different bands that I just happen to enjoy. I enjoy a large swath of music. Eclectic, I guess that's what you would term it. I'm eclectic. So it's like maybe master of none. It's like a jack of all trades, a master of none. If I came close to being like more of an expert or master, it would be kind of like old school hip hop. I just grew up listening to that music. It was really pervasive in my neighborhoods growing up. So it's kind of like the music that you listen to kind of fit in. As a Brooklyn boy growing up in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood and Williamsburg sections that I grew up in New York at the time. So, we talked about Run DMC. Huge fan of Run DMC. They were like one of the iconic wearers of hats, right? So I talked about Run DMC. They put fedoras back in the 80s, right? So we talked about like the resurgence, right, of the hat subculture in entertainment. So we had on the cinematic side, obviously Indiana Jones. Right, they brought that high crown with the front dents. Everybody knows the indie style. And then on the musical front, I definitely got to think Run DMC was part of that resurgence of the fedora. Oliver, okay, Oliver, okay. I'm just gonna take 1 second to make sure my cat. Hey, Oliver, stop it. Thank you. He just makes a ruckus. He gets fixated on the shades, my Venetian blinds on the window. So I don't want you guys get that. So I have to go and shoot Oliver a little bit. So he's just looking at me. He likes attention. Um, Anyhow, Run DMC, we talked about them on an earlier stream. They brought back the fedora. Another kind of artist was LL Cool J. And LL Cool J didn't rock a fedora, but he had one of those, like, what is it, bucket hats? It was like a Kangol bucket hat. And then shout out to Kangol. I think Kangol is one of those brands that are kind of like, they don't get enough love from our hat nerds, but I think Kangol was iconic. Definitely in the 80s and even the 90s. It's really synonymous with a lot of the urban streetwear. I definitely would welcome anybody that's a really big fan of Kangol. So that's Kangol. They are really iconic for me because that's the style that you saw in Brooklyn and in Queens, in greater New York City area in the heyday of hip hop. At least I like to think it's the heyday, in the 80s and early 90s, where the music was a little bit less violent. There was a little more basic, and a little less, well, a lot less violent, I guess, in theme, but still very, very very captivating, and that's kind of the boom bap sound, right? So Kangol was just one of those things where it's like if you were part of that culture and you wanted to show that you were part of that subculture, you wore yourself a Kangol hat. Uh, uh, it's kind of like the shades. There was the gazelle shades. Um, that was another part. That was like they went hand to hand. You had the Kangol, the gazelle shades, and then you had the Adidas sneakers because of Run DMC, right? With the fat laces, right? And for folks that kind of grew up in that style, or maybe are recreating that style now, know that that was like the uniform that you wore, right? That was the uniform that you wore. You wore your Kangol hat, your Gazelle shades, and your Adidas with the fat shoelaces. And if you didn't wear something like that, then you weren't cool, And when you were a kid like me, growing up in the 80s, you just wanted to fit in, right? It's not like I am Luke like as close to his 50s, where he's comfortable completely not fitting in. It's like you don't wear a hat like this and like expect to just blend in, in modern day, era. At that point, you just like, I'm comfortable being not cookie cutter, and that's fine. I will be comfortable expressing myself. That's one of my favorite expressions from, well, one, that was a rap song, right? Express Yourself was a song by NWA. But beyond that, even before that, Bruce Lee, big fan of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee always talked about how he approaches martial arts as a form of expression, right? Is a physical form of expression. And that goes for dancing as well, right? Dancers, no matter what kind of dancing you like, dance is a physical expression of emotion to the beat of music, usually, right? Um, and it also is expression of, how you feel, right? Some people dance because they feel happy. um Other people dance because they want to feel happy. They're not feeling happy, but they want to become happy, right? We talked about the smile and how like the smile can make you feel happy. I gotta think that that's why dance and just exercise in general is something that people are really into, because movement, the physical movement, when you're feeling like you're doing what you want to do and you're getting better by doing that, that makes you feel happy. Everybody talks about like all those endorphins and that adrenaline that you feel when you do physical activity. And that's why I'm kind of like enjoying some of my walks that I've been on lately, because I feel better after I go and I do that movement. And I'm not a big dancer. I come from a long line of like, Puerto Ricans definitely are into dance. Their salsa music. I can do a little bit of salsa. I love the music, but I got like two left feet. But I still try. I still try. But yeah, shout out to all my dancers out there. No matter what kind of dance you like doing and you like watching, I think dancing keeps you young. I have a good friend, Lynn, on Facebook, and she's a fellow member of the DC Mets. And Lynn's going through some health issues lately, and it's affected her ability to dance. But she's really positive. I love Lynn's positivity, and she's confident that she's going to dance again. And Lynn, I'm all for it. If you get to dance again, I'd love to have the first dance, or even the second dance, because you got to celebrate that. My dad's also had trouble walking. Um, and my dad was never been just like myself. I guess maybe I got it from my dad. We both, were never really into dancing per se. We love watching it, and we love music, right? I come from a very musical family. My dad and my granddad both played the accordion. I got other members of the family that played the accordion. That's just a classic instrument in Puerto Rican music, in addition to like the guitar, right? The guitar sound. There's a special guitar that's known as the cuatro. So that means four, stands for four strings, and it's an iconic instrument in Puerto Rican folk music. We call jibaro music. The jibaro is basically just like a nod to the country folk of Puerto Rico. So I'm very much in touch to the jibaro culture. This guayabera is something that is my tie to the Puerto Rican jibaro. So shout out to the jibaros that still exist, past, present, and future, out in Puerto Rico and out elsewhere worldwide, because it's a rich tradition. And like I said, I like to respect tradition. Especially, I respect my own traditions. I also respect the traditions of others. Only because I kind of try to give respect first to get respect. And I offer up first. I think that's how we should always carry ourselves, because not everybody's going to reciprocate. You just have to be comfortable with that, and then you just kind of have to decide how you're going to behave at that moment. I usually opt to kind of go with the well, I'll still respect you even if you didn't show me respect, and just so you can serve as an example, right? And it really does hurt to kind of turn the other cheek sometimes. But I think, like I said, there's usually you're not going to make a disrespectful person into a respectful one by telling them off, especially not by telling them off, right? You're never going to convince folks to be somebody they're not. And it's just not going to happen. That's why I don't talk about politics, and that's why I don't try to engage too often with disrespectful people, because again, all it's gonna happen is it's gonna try to take me out of my happy place. And I like to stay smiling, man. Let me keep my smile, eh? Don't ruin my. It's like the person that likes to imbibe on their recreational substances. They're like, don't ruin my high, man. Uh, uh, it's actually a funny story. I actually was me and my son got to our seats, but then we found out that we were in the wrong seats. It was completely by accident. And then we had the group that actually had those seats come along, and the guy that was at the front of the group was like, I think this is our seat. And I was like, I'm so sorry. We apologize preemptively. And I think he saw the hat, he saw my demeanor, and then he was just like, oh, it's all right, man. And then he went complete hippie on me. He's like, man, we're basically all high anyway. It doesn't matter to us. And I'm like, well, okay, I didn't need to know that, but I'm glad you trusted me with that information. Maybe the Fedora just like gained instant trust. I don't know why. I don't know why people tell me decide to like divulge stuff. Maybe it's the Fedora, maybe it's the smile, maybe it's everything. I don't know. Sometimes people just tell me stuff, and I'm like, I guess I appreciate it. Sometimes it's TMI, and I'm like, man, that's God bless, right? It's like that's cool. I'm not gonna say anything. I guess some people just, some people listen to music and indulge. Uh, and I guess some people do it at the ball game. I guess it's not something I thought about watching a ball game, and that people might do that. But I mean, whatever, to each his own. I definitely don't endorse any kind of drug. I have my own vices, but every to each his own. I'm kind of like live and let live, and as long as you're not impacting the quality of life of those around you, then I'm kind of like, to me it's just like it's more or less harmless until it's not, right? Drinking and driving, we know, is harmful. Please don't drink and drive if that's something that you have done before. Definitely get help. And obviously, there are drugs out there that are a little bit more of, pose a danger to oneself and to society. Definitely, it's one of those things. If you see, if you know that somebody, if it's you or somebody that you love or really care for, that's dealing with that, please, so if you see something, say something, because you never know, right? We were talking about musicians. I talked about like the Doors. I talked about the Stone Temple Pilots, two bands that I really love, and both of those gentlemen, lead singers, Jim Morrison and Scott Weiland, I believe they were both lost to drugs. I could be wrong about Jim Morrison, but I think that's correct. It's really very, to be honest, it's really kind of more common than we even want to admit. We lost a lot of great stars to drugs, and I just, again, not to be preachy here and get on a soapbox, but if you or somebody you love is going through that, please get them help to the degree possible. Anyway, back to the topic at hand, which is hats. Again, I went on another tangent. What are you gonna do? Luke goes on tangents. We really haven't had much engagement today. I wonder if everybody's just got something else going on. I mean, I had a few folks kind of poke their head in, maybe to kind of get a peek of the hat. And that's cool. Like, again, I mentioned before, I really don't want this channel to be a channel where, I obligate, like I started off that way, I think. And I think it was just out of pure ignorance. So if that was you and I chased you away by being like, by asking too much, I apologize. That was just something that I had no idea that, I guess it dawned on me one time. I'm like, because obviously, introverts and extroverts exist, not just, in person, but also over the internet, right? Everybody knows about lurking, right? People like to lurk for a reason. It's like they want to see, but they don't want to be part of the action. I want this also be to a safe place where you can lurk. And if you don't want to interact, I'm cool. Usually I'll have something I can talk about and bloviate about. Right? That's what my channel says. Is just a middle-aged guy bloviating about hats, and obviously a lot more than hats, right? I'm a little bit more than just a hat or a collection of hats. I'm a real human being with a story, an evolving story. Right? That story of Luke is still being written as we speak, right? You might say something that's like blows my mind and changes my life forever. That's kind of like, I'm open to that. I am completely open to that, right? Like I said, there's been so many great people that I've met in my hat journey that have changed my life for the better. Like I said, I just happen to love this community because I just think it has less jerks, and I have no data to support this. I just know this based on personal experience, right? And I've dealt with the watch community, and again, no offense to the watch community, no offense to the car community. I've interacted with both of those subcultures, and a lot more jerks. Again, and that could just strictly be a numbers game, to be honest. Maybe the jerk base rate is just the same. But some of the sweetest, nicest folks I've met have been in the hat, subculture, and I like that. I mean, it makes me kind of think that maybe the hat, like I mentioned before in the previous live stream, that the hat plays a role in that. I got to think. Maybe nice people are more attracted to the hat hobby, the fine hat hobby, or maybe that fine hat hobby is something that makes you a happier person. I know I'm happy. I know I've been happy before hats, but I'm even more happy now that I got into now I consider myself a hat person, a fine hat person, right? And now I just want to be like wearing my hat and sharing my hats and talking about hats, and that's why I got this channel started. Yeah. I'm gonna go, even though I don't have anybody that's joined here and interacted with me. What I'm gonna do, as per tradition, is share my screen and share some photos I got of this hat, right? Because again, remember, Luke takes off this hat and you're gonna see his hair wreck. No different right now. So I'm gonna just leave that. Like, I'm glad I evolved away from taking off my hat. I think I took it off yesterday only because I had to show you the lining. I didn't have a photo to show you, so I took over like the lining. So if you want to, listen to that, you can always go and link that video, and that was from yesterday, where I showed you how I lined the front of my hats to size them down, and I use felt, right? So those that will want to be bothered, I have evolved my hat sizing, right? So shout out to Kevin Todd Gerber of Hats and Guitars, and I believe it was him and some of my Fedora loungers or lounge lizards where I learned and came to appreciate the fact that I don't have to buy a hat my exact size. Usually, if I have a choice, I can chase a hat that's bigger than my normal hat size. And this is one of them, but actually it fits a little bit closer. I think this is like a 59 centimeters. And if you recall, my head size is about 57 to 58 centimeters. And so this one's a little big, and I like it because it kind of helps me get a little hat tilt. Shout out to Frank Sinatra, right? Robin and the Seven Hoods. You had a song, famous song. I talked about it before in my live stream. Robin and the Seven Hoods. You had a collaboration between Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, and Bing Crosby in that movie, right? What a famous trio there. Besides, you had Sammy Davis Jr. that was in that movie as well as Peter Falk. But you had that trio, that song. I think it was called Style. But everybody remembers the chorus: "A hat's not a hat till it's tilted." And I love that song, man. That song is. It just makes me feel like it gets me in the mood. Like, this is definitely one of those hats that you want to get your hat tilt on. I'm not really that good with the hat tilt. And then, I wonder if it's kind of like, whether you're supposed to tilt it to the left or to the right. But no matter how you like your hat tilted, you got to respect the hat tilt in general. And some people tilt to the left, some people tilt to the right, but there's no wrong way to do this hat hobby, right? That's like, there's no wrong way to do the hat hobby. There's no wrong way to tilt your hat. But it does kind of give you that feel good to tilt that hat sometimes, because you kind of brings you back into that yesteryear, right? And maybe some of that gangster, and again, shout out to my gangster movie aficionados. I'm one of them. Sometimes you kind of get that little gangster hat, but this is just like I said, I always give the nod to Frank Sinatra because he had an iconic hat tilt. In addition to the hat tilt, Frank Sinatra was known for the and I demonstrated this before, and I'll do it again on when I do profile my very first hat, which wasn't a fine hat by any means, but it was my first kind of style. It was a straw trilby that I bought in Split, Croatia, that started me on this hat journey. and also on my world travel journey, more or less. I was, kind of one of my first big trips. But I wore that trilby, and I think I still prefer to rock trilbies, Frank Sinatra style, as he wore it, which is kind of like at the back of your head. Anybody that knows, that's a fan of Frank Sinatra, knows that look, that Frank Sinatra back of your head trilby hit look, where you got the front of the hair a little bit more exposed. And obviously Frank wore a really sharp outfit always. He was just an impeccable dresser. And one fun factoid about Frank Sinatra: his favorite color was orange. His favorite color was orange, and he wore orange as often as he could when he was out in public. And he was obviously, when it's Frank Sinatra, he's like, "I see you wearing a lot of orange. What's up with the orange?" Apparently, Frank Sinatra's favorite color was orange because he said it made him feel happy. He said it to him, it was the happiest color. And I got to think that, yeah, I mean, I buy into it, right? My Mets, my New York Mets wear blue and orange. I happen to be a big fan of blue, but the blue and orange. Also, the New York Knicks rock blue and orange. I'll have to kind of get a blue and orange hat. I feel like if I get a blue and orange stingy brim with, right, a nice midnight or navy blue, whatever the Mets color is, and Knicks blue. I'm just going to call it Mets blue, and with the orange band and a nice orange brim, kind of like this, but with blue and orange. So I can wear them to the Mets games, and maybe even a Knicks game if I ever attend one. But I got a feeling that that's gonna be my signature hat if I get it. Like I have a lot of at least my knockaround hat. I don't know if I could ever do a signature hat the one hat I'll wear. I just got too many hats I love that you probably won't see me rock any one hat like forever. I don't think that'll ever be me. Maybe one day if I have to sell the rest of my collection, or I just get a bug in my bonnet about selling most of my hats and keeping one or two, then I'll probably just stick to my signature. But I got a feeling like it might be, and who knows, if I had to pick a style, it would be stingy brim. I don't know if it would be a pork pie or just a stingy brim, but it would have a low profile, maybe with a nice center dent or a teardrop with two front dents. I'm like, that's kind of like, you know, like in conjuring that hat. And who knows, maybe I'll get Kevin to build me one. It looks like he has the ability to make any custom hat, or Paul. Paul's another one. We have Paul here from PJ Murphy and Son. Shout out to Paul. He wasn't on the stream yesterday. Paul probably is just busy. Paul is also the owner of Passion for Hats, and also a bespoke hat maker in British bespoke hat maker, and makes some fine looking hats. So check out his inventory at PJ Murphy and Son. I'm sure if you Googled that, you should come up with the exact website. Really reasonably priced. So I don't know, either Kevin or PJ Murphy, or who knows, maybe one of the other custom hat makers, maybe even Bar J. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go on a little bit about this hat. It's already been an hour. We haven't really had anybody here, and that's cool. I'm happy to go into this myself. Everybody knows I'm a talker. I can do this. And I'll go into some of the pictures I had for you guys. And if somebody joins and wants to start a conversation, I'd be happy to do that. But let's start off with the obvious here. Right? I'm going to share the screen, and then you're going to see obviously the first thing I thought about when I saw this hat for the first time. Right? You may or may not know who this is, right? But just to help you out, this is Carmen Sandiego, right? When I saw this hat, now you might not be surprised in the least bit, right, by this fact that this hat, when I first saw this hat, and I got this hat from our, Hats and Guitars, Kevin Todd Gerber. And when I saw him selling this hat, like, first of all, he had this hat for quite a while before he finally sold it to me. It was one of those hats that was a little bit pricier hat that he had that selling. I don't know if you guys who don't know of Kevin's Facebook group, a fantastic group in addition to his YouTube channel. But I saw this on Kevin's Hats and Guitars Facebook group. This was kind of like when Kevin was transitioning away from vintage hats. He still has a few hats for sale, but I think he might have already sold all the vintage hats that that he's gonna sell. But he had a tremendous collection of vintage hats, Kevin did. And he kind of made way, I think, kind of to either one, make space for his KTG hat line. And Kevin also was selling them, I think, probably to fund his business. And I think it was kind of like nice that some of us in his group were able to purchase some of his hats and help Kevin out in clearing out some of his vintage hat industry inventory. I got my Knox Tom and Jerry from him. I got that Moore's Hamburg that I profiled. Wow. And this is probably the priciest hat that I've purchased from Kevin so far. I won't go into detail, but there's definitely a story behind that. Apparently, and this is kind of all I'll divulge about the previous owner of this hat. Apparently, the understanding that I had was that the gentleman that owned the hat had a very serious health condition and needed money to kind of get him through. So he kind of is a good friend of Kevin's, and Kevin agreed to assist him in getting rid of his hats and then handing him the funds. And he was doing this in conjunction with the gentleman's wife. I don't know. I never got an update on the status of the gentleman. I hope he made a recovery. It just wasn't one of those conditions that one recovers from. But I'll leave it at that. Again, I'm trying to respect the privacy of everybody involved. But apparently this hat belonged to this gentleman, and he had it custom made for him. So I actually have the original card in here. That's why I won't show the card, because it does have the gentleman's name, and I'm trying to respect his privacy. But I do believe that none of the photos reveals. You might see the card at from an angle, but I don't believe that the gentleman's name is on there, like it's visible. If it is, I will probably preemptively, I would try to see if I could use my limited editing skills to edit that out. So if you see this and you're able to make out the gentleman's name, just drop me a line, only because I want to try to figure out how to digitize that, and I will learn how to do it because I figured that might come up again in the future. I do have hats. And some of them have like initials, which initials are probably not that bad to show. But I want to say I do own another hat that has somebody's name in it, and maybe even an address. So maybe I will figure out how to digitize that so that that I'm respectful. Like, again, I mentioned before, I try to be respectful of everybody's privacy and everybody just in general. It's just the way I am. It's the way I was raised. And if I don't come across as respectful, if I ever disrespect you, I'm one that has no problem with apologizing preemptively as well as retroactively. So it's just not my intention. So it's not the way I was raised, and it's not the way I raised my son. So if we ever come across like that, I apologize. Anyhow, this was a hat that as soon as I saw it, I was like, holy cow, it's a Carmen Sandiego hat. Now, again, I never bothered to ask Kevin to see if he knew whether that was intentional or not, or just happened to be a coincidence. I don't know. And it doesn't really matter, to be honest, what the original intention is. This will forever be the Carmen Sandiego hat to me. And that's just what it'll be, right? It's like, it's a very loud, out there hat. And again, by far the loudest hat I know. And it really is like, it was probably a KTG hat without being a KTG hat, right? So no disrespect to Bar J. When I saw this, I was kind of like, is that a Kevin hat? And then, and it is fitting with the style. Like, if you know Kevin's, signature mint green Borsalino that he wore, that ultimately came to inspire his current signature Sky Piece line, you will know the iconic Kevin mint green hat, his fedora, that looks really sharp, looks really good on him. Kevin, I think you chose well. I know you have a couple others that you kind of switch between now, but that mint green forever will be known as the Kevin Gerber, right? Kind of like we talked about the Borsellino Alessandria being known as the Johnny Depp hat. I think any of the mint green fedoras that have like that look will, in my mind, will always be called the Kevin Gerber. It's just it is. It's just is. Anyhow, this is the Carmen Sandiego hat, and it will always be that way. It looks like the spammers know when I'm streaming. Maybe one day I'll figure out how to like silence my phone. It just my phone's kind of a little bit of a mystery to me sometimes. So apologize for that if that came through really loud. I know it startled me. Maybe I'll have to kind of quarantine my phone if I don't figure it out. So sorry about that. But onto the Carmen Sandiego hat. Again, Carmen Sandiego is just one of those characters that I grew up with in the 80s, and apparently is still alive and well and entertaining the masses here in 2025. I think Netflix did a animated series on Carmen Sandiego, and essentially in the 80s, if and I don't know if it's still the case, but the reason why Carmen Sandiego is such a uh, favorite is that I think Carmen Sandiego was like Dora the Explorer before Dora existed, right? Or Barney, or any of these iconic characters that were used to help engage in learning, right? So Carmen Sandiego was all about geography. It's like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego, right? And that's something besides the that idea of learning and bringing me back to my childhood. It's still alive today, right? Because now I mentioned that I've in middle age, is when I started traveling the world, right? I went to Europe for the first time a few years back, and again, my hat journey started in Croatia. Uh, so this hat speaks to me on many levels, and it just like I knew I had to have it. And when I heard that the money was going to go towards helping this gentleman, who was in financial need given his health condition, it just like take my money, right? It's like, Kevin, here, take my money. And it was a treat to meet Kevin and pick up this hat. We actually have a really great photo that I won't share now. But if you're a member of Kevin's Hats and Guitars, you've probably seen it. And if you haven't seen it, maybe you could just search for it. I'm sure if you look up his group and you put in a search term, uh, uh, DJ Bar or something like that, you'll see my post. Shout out to Kevin again. Thank you so much. I hope that your friend is on the mend. Definitely reach out, Kevin, if and let me know what you know if you're comfortable sharing. Again, I want to respect everybody's privacy, but my heart and my prayers go out to the gentleman and his family, for what they're going through, or hopefully not going through anymore. Anyhow, Carmen Sandiego. That's I get that every single time I put on this hat, and I don't blame him. I'm like, it makes me touched that people actually know who Carmen Sandiego is. And I guess it's no surprise given that the fact that Netflix is doing the series on it. I actually haven't caught that yet, but I will. Anyway, I'll go into some photos. Again, I know a lot of people like to see the angles of the hats, and apparently these are photos that were really good, and it was taken by the man himself, Kevin Todd Gerber. Kevin, thank you for the great photos. I'm gonna reuse these because, like I said, I think you really did the hat justice in terms of the photographing. This is kind of like, for me, my favorite shot. Kevin, you're a genius. You're a mad scientist with the camera. I love this angle. It just kind of shows you, like I said, you see that teardrop. I don't know how high the crown is. I'm looking, it looks very high from this angle. I don't know why. Sometimes it depends on what angle you look at it, but it does have that height and that really pointy top crown. Again, besides Carmen Sandiego, it does kind of have kind of like that hybrid of a gangster that doesn't take themselves too seriously, or maybe something like the Joker, right? Maybe if this wasn't purple, it'd totally be a Joker style hat, right? It's kind of like somebody that has like an edge, but also has like a potentially a maniacal or comical side to them. I think everybody has that in their personality, right? Another character that I think really this hat would fit really well in, especially if it was yellow, right? Everybody seen The Mask, right? The Mask had a really iconic scene where Jim Carrey, as the Mask, dons a zoot suit, right? And he had I think it was a really yellow zoot suit, big hat with a big brim, obviously with the feather. And obviously this doesn't have that big of a brim. I think the brim size on this is between like 2.5, it's like 2.25 to 2.5. So not even a 3-inch brim this hat has, but it does wear big. Like the style is big. The loudness is big. It's a big, loud feeling hat, without even being that sizable in proportions. It just feels like it's an out there hat. And when I really want to be, especially like, remember I told you that I'm not really that comfortable. I'm not really that uncomfortable with standing out, but when I'm especially like at the fringe of that, this is a hat that I'll wear. Because it's kind of like the look at me hat that, if there was such a thing, this is it. And Kevin has lots of these. Paul, who's a passion for hats, and PJ Murphy and Son, he made a remark about how he feels like the U.S. market is a lot more amenable to hats like this now. Like he's getting more orders. I think Paul mentioned that he's got like 25. He's making like 25 hats per month. So that says to me, that sounds like a lot. For a bespoke hat maker, 25 hats a month, that's a blessing. So shout out to Paul. Paul, if you watch this, keep up the good work, and hopefully, maybe I can get an example of one of your hats one day. Like I said, my Paul makes a lot more of the high crown hats, but my style is more of like the low crown 60s and 70s, stingy brim. But what I do like is this trim, right? So I'm looking at this trim and I'm like, okay, we get a Mets blue out here, and then we get a ribbon, like a nice orange ribbon, right, that will contrast nicely with the blue and orange, and then we'll get a nice contrast on the brim side between a blue brim that matches the crown, and a nice orange trim, kind of like this. It's like it's there, it's thick enough, but it's not like too thick. It's like just right. Maybe it'd be more stingy brim, maybe 2 inches, or maybe even 1 3/4. Something that looks nice and tight, and is fitting with that stingy brim. I just feel like that would be what, if I would have a signature hat, it'd be that. At least that's what it feels like now, right? If Luke had a signature hat, it would be a stingy brim with the low crown. Only because I know a lot of people hate the low crown, but I happen to love it. It's my style. But a nice low crown, Mets blue, contrasted with an orange ribbon, and same on the brim side. A nice blue, Mets blue brim with the nice Mets orange trim. Like, I feel I can see that hat in my head. I even actually have like some kind of like AI generated sketch, but it didn't exactly turn out like to look at exactly the way I want it. But anyhow, I'll eventually probably get that. It's one of my, like, besides the brown bowler, the vintage brown bowler, my other grail is to get again, I just don't think I'll ever see a vintage hat like that, or even a lot of modern hats like that. I do know that somebody like Kevin and Paul, from PJ Murphy and Sons, they probably would be able to put that together. Yeah, so just putting that out there, guys. If you're able to come up with a sketch or something, and we can work on that together, I'd love to do that, because again, I think that one has possibility of being like my go-to, right? Like, remember we talked about the knockaround hat, which is a little different than the signature hat. it'd be like some sort of hybrid, right? Because again, I don't think I could do a signature hat. For me, a signature hat would be one that you're always wearing, right? Like Johnny Depp has like the Alessandro, the Borsellino, and Kevin used to rock the mint green, fedora. Um, it just has signature hat written all over it. I just want to have something I can wear to a Mets ball game or to a DC Mets gathering that says Luke, and it also says, hey, I love the Mets. And even that I love the Knicks, even though I'm not as big of a Knicks fan. Shout out to the Mets and the Knicks for wearing that iconic blue and orange. So blue and orange skies forever, right? Shout out to New York. Anyhow, I'll show you a couple more photos. Just of like, again, these were all shot by Kevin Todd Gerber. And again, I saw these and I was like, okay, I didn't really need to snap any photos because Kevin, I think, really captured the essence of this hat. And I mean, like I said, the photos were good enough that it caught my attention. And I was like, you know what? I like this hat. Like it sats mine, as long as Kevin and I can agree, on, the acquisition and all that. Usually I don't think I've had Kevin ever ship me a hat. Usually what I'll do is the 2 or 3 times that I bought hats from Kevin, what I've done is I've prepaid for them. And then I told Kevin to hold on to them. So I paid them and he held on to them for me while he waited to meet me in near his place in Queens. So I would go to Kevin. I text him. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go and I'll be in New York on this weekend. Let's say, do you have any availability?" And usually Kevin, and as busy as he is, he manages to find the time. And when we meet up and maybe to have a little small talk, sometimes I think I remember that it might have been the very first time I met Kevin. It was hot as all get out. Man, I don't think it was some kind of heat wave that was in New York City. And Kevin and I basically, exchanged niceties, but all I could think about, and I'm sure he thought the same, was we got to get out. We got to get out of here. I think that's when Kevin came up with the idea of getting a beer. And I don't think we did get that beer together yet, Kevin. We will have a beer together the next time. Well, I don't know. I can't promise anything. Obviously, every time I go to New York City, I always have like sort of a packed itinerary. So making time for like new stuff is harder, but I'll make it happen. Especially if I got a hat, right? Like there's no way I'm gonna like leave, if I'm just like a kid in a candy store, right? Or a kid that wants to get that new toy home. If I buy a hat from Kevin, then I kind of guarantee that I'm going to go out and meet him, beer or no beer, because I want to get the hat. Like I said, I think that's the reason why when somebody buys a hat from me, that they get it, like I ship it right away, right? So like the gentleman in Utah mentioned, is like he made a payment to me, and then I shipped the hat literally that same day. And I sent them the tracking information and he says like, holy cow, Luke, that was fast. That was fast. And I said, well, I don't even know if I explained it to him, but I'm like, the reason behind that is that I know how it feels when you're buying something online, or when you're buying it like what I do with Kevin, where you set it up, you make the payment, and all you're waiting for is like, how do I get to New York fast enough, or soon enough so that I can get my hat. And Kevin usually always has everything in a nice hat box, even if that's not something that's part of the deal. And he'll give you some extra goodies sometimes. I think Kevin's given me a bunch of feathers, a bunch of stickers. Kevin always, like I said, when you interact and you do business with Kevin, you kind of know he's been in the business for a long time. Actually, if you a little tidbit, Kevin comes from a long line of like business. Like his dad was a really well-known business owner in New York. Hopefully Kevin's not he's not opposed to me talking about this, and not something that I only learned this through one of his YouTube channel videos. So I'm assuming he is comfortable with it. But yeah, Kevin's dad owned a sporting goods store that I remember really well in New York. I actually feel like I wonder if he had multiple locations, because I feel like I've been to that store at least one of the locations. Kevin, if you see this, did your dad's sporting goods store have multiple locations? I feel like there was one in Brownsville. I want to say it was the Brownsville section of Brooklyn that I have really vivid memories of getting. Uh, uh, they're not baseball, but they were softballs, right? Because when I grew up, we really didn't play. I didn't play baseball. The kids around the neighborhood usually played two types of, I guess, derivatives of baseball. One was softball that we did with a diamond in when we had access to a diamond, right? And we played. We had a schoolyard that we played in, and there was distinct memories of playing in that schoolyard and playing softball because the school only had four floors, right? So basically, you really didn't have to hit the ball far in as much as you need to hit the ball high. So we roofed the ball, right? And everything, it was like the person that roofs the ball. It's kind of like if you remember the movie Sandlot when the kid hits the ball out into the yard with the dog, and everybody's like, the kid that hits the ball is happy, but everybody else is upset because essentially you stop the game, right? Unless somebody else has another softball, then the game ends, right? Or it's to be continued, right? And we would, and I'd hit a few of them. I got good enough to just like, uh, you know, uh, tweak my swing so I could roof the ball. And like I said, it was always a bittersweet thing because you knew that you were either, you were going to celebrate, but everybody else was going to be really mad at you. And that kind of like made it a little bit more fun, right? And I don't know. At some point, when we got into like the thing where if you roof the ball, then you buy the ball, right? And I think when I roofed a few balls into that roof of that schoolyard, I had to go buy the next softball. And I think I went to Kevin's dad's sporting goods store to buy the ball. Again, I don't know for sure, but when Kevin told me his dad's store's name, I'm pretty sure it was his dad's store because he did. It was a sporting goods store and a very prominent one in the area. So shout out to Kevin, shout out to his dad. Again, two pillars of the sales community. One's the sporting goods, where Kevin did work, I think, at some point, but I don't think for very long. Kevin was in. He worked at the hat shop for many, many, many years and has some great stories. And kind of developed the Kevin. That's Kevin's journey. Led to the Kevin that we all know and love today. So shout out to Kevin and your hat journey. Anyhow, if you haven't seen that story, check out his channel and when he talks about his hat journey and his musical journey. Very, very interesting. Regardless of whether you're a hat person or a music person, I appreciate those kind of stories. Anyway, I'll show some more photos. Here's the top. Is a very nice. This is the way the hat came to me. I'm assuming it's the way Kevin received the hat. Maybe Kevin was the one that did the teardrop. Really, like, I don't think even if I knew how to steam it, if I did a steam hat, I don't think I could get it to look as good. This good. This looks like maybe Bar J, did this himself. The David Johnson, I believe, is the gentleman's name, and we'll get to that in a second. So just showing a couple more photos. That way you can kind of, I won't spend too much time because there's not really much to tell. The hat kind of speaks for itself. But really nice custom job here, man. I looked on the Bar J Hats website, and I don't think I seen any other felts like the models that he has off the shelf. So this was totally a custom job. Really great feeling felt, right? Sorry, pun intended, not intended. But this is a high quality custom hat. Like I said, I did not pay the same price as this, but this is, I think this would be a $500 hat. I mean, I gotta think, coming from Bar J. So yeah, just I'll show you some more photos. This is a nice little, I believe it's a Bar J pin, and you can see here again. This is one again. I'm a like the hat nerds really dig the pins. It just adds up some flair, right? It's really a way to make a hat your own. And usually it's something that means something to you, or maybe it's something that you want to adorn your ribbon, your hat ribbon on. But I feel like when I'm closing up here, you can kind of see that felt in that, like that really nice felt. And I'm no expert on felts, um, but by all means, when I this is one of those felts that when you touch it, you're like, okay, this is special. Besides the overall, the whole package it just did it for me. Again, it's not a hat I wear every day, or even close to that. I think I've worn this on like three separate occasions probably. And one of them including a Mets game. We didn't win that game, so a lot of people didn't like the red fedora. A lot of my DC Mets did not like the red fedora that I wore in the Mets playoffs game last season, because they thought it was cursed. Baseball fans are superstitious. We're not superstitious, but we're a little stitious. Them's the jokes, folks. Can't all be amaterial. But here's another angle. You see that feather. I don't even know if I think I still, yeah, that's the feather right there. Again, looks besides the fact that it's not a really wide brim, it's not a 3 or 4 inch brim. This is a hat that's very much at home if you were rocking a zoot suit, right? I just got that zoot suit big band feel when I saw this. Besides Carmen Sandiego, it was very much that big band zoot suit riot type of that type of hat. So shout out to my zoot suiters out there if you're still around doing your thing. This is again now switching into the inside again. I chose some of the photos that Kevin sent me that didn't show. I think Kevin actually didn't really even send me a photo of that hat card so that he could respect the privacy of his friend there, and I respect that, and I'm going to reciprocate by not snapping any additional photos of that card because it does have his name on it, and I want to respect the family. And this is just really sharp. It has that hat tip liner, that plastic hat tip liner, right? So you can protect. Remember, we talked about that plastic is functional besides being something, an additional piece that will let you date, additional clue that can date a vintage hat. This is not a vintage hat. This is a custom hat, but you can see that the reason this was probably included is to protect that lining, especially the one that has the logo. I think it's a really nice touch that David Johnson, that David did on this hat. So yeah, it just that gold lettering really pops against the red lining. Remember, I showed you already 2 hats, and I think I have another one that have that lining that really pops, right? This is just yet another example, right? This is just another pull that made Luke say, this hat's mine. If this hat's available, I'm getting it because I can't believe this hat's not sold already, right? So again, I think this is actually just a copy of that. Um, yeah, this is just a copy. Apologize. I think I just had a duplicate in there. So you can see this one has like a little bit of the card in there. So you can see that there was a card. This is something that was included by David Johnson, the hatter of I guess the master hatter at Bar J. So my assumption is that's what DJ stands for, David Johnson. So he added this card because this was a custom-made hat for that gentleman with his name on it. And I forget, it has something really snazzy written on it that I was like, makes you like, it's really cute. I think it was like some take your hands off, like, of this hat or something like that. Something that like similar to the Kevin's, take your hands off my hat, you dirty rat. That's a great shirt, by the way, Kevin. I think I don't usually wear things with logos or sayings on them. Like that's just one of those things about my style. But every once in a while I make exceptions, and that might be an exception. I mean, it's like anything hat related probably will be an exception. But just FYI, Kevin, the only reason I haven't gotten a shirt like that yet from you is that I don't usually wear stuff with logos on it. It's just kind of not my personal style. I don't know if that's something anybody else does, but it just it just reminds me of the Run DMC song, where he goes like, Calvin Klein's no friend of mine. Don't want nobody's name on my behind. I thought that was like, you know, I was like, that's really clever, and it's also like speaks to the person, right? Uh, uh, and their style, right? They're like, I don't want to rock your logo. And again, no offense to your logo, but there's certain things I don't want to advertise. I kind of want to let the style speak to itself. That's what at least what I got out of it. Maybe there was, Run DMC had or now the Rev Run, who was the I guess the leader. There was Run, there was DMC, and together they are Run DMC. But yeah, Run, when he dropped that line, it really hit home. And it probably hit more home now, right? Because I think when I was younger and I was listening to that music, that I was happy to wear the logos, right? I was happy to go and you know tell you, hey, these my sneakers are from Nike, and my jeans were Calvin Klein or Levi's or Lee's that sometimes we wore back in the day until like nobody this it became bad to wear Lee's jeans. Whatever the cool jeans were, we had cross colors at some point, and all that other stuff that I can't recall that made my mom buy me because I had to fit in. So if that's you now, just be if you're a kid that's watching this video, and I don't know if that's going to be possible, or you're a parent on the other side where your kid keeps begging you. I know my son did it to me. Um, there was we just lost Malcolm Jamal Warner, right? If you don't know the name, you might remember him from the 80s show, the Huxtable, the Cosby Show. And he played uh, Theodore Huxtable, so played by Bill Cosby. He played his TV show son, Theo Huxtable. And there was such a great episode on just what I just mentioned now, where Theo gets a bug in his bonnet about a Gordon Gartrell shirt, right? He just had to have this designer Gordon Gartrell shirt. And basically he starts off with his dad is like, because he knows that his dad is a physician and that his mom is a high-powered lawyer. But besides, even though they are well off and living in Brooklyn Heights in this fancy brownstone, and they're well off, they still have kind of the values, right? They don't just get their kids everything they want. And I think that's something really, there's a really big sound message there that just because you love your kids doesn't mean you buy your kids every single thing they ask for. It's just a bad. Again, no offense to those who actually go ahead and do that, right? If that's what you choose to do. But for me and my son, um, I kind of took that thing of it was good enough for me. Like we grew up with not a lot of money in my household, so if me when Luke was my son's age at the time, I had to actually save my money up. So like we would get like I don't know. My dad felt like, I don't think we had like a weekly allowance or anything, but every once in a while, my dad was feeling good and like we could hit him up for a couple bucks. Or one of my uncles or other family members, like my grandma or my granddad or like I said, my uncles, they'll come over and they'll like, we don't even ask them, like they'll just hand over some money. And, if you were like my younger brother, maybe you spent it right away on candy, right? But if you were me, I didn't do that. Like even as much as I love candy, I really didn't like. I mean, I was always like a fat kid, but it wasn't because I ate candy all the time. I think I liked Mars bars, and a little candy called Boston baked beans. That was like my vice. I had like Snickers bars. I like Mars bars even better than Snickers. Like Mars were like Snickers with more peanuts in it, and I like Boston baked beans. I remember that. But I didn't really eat a lot of it. I think I got really, really fat because my mom would cook food and I'd have like a second helping and sometimes a third helping. And sometimes on top of that, like my dad gave me like the big potato that he had left over from the food. Holy cow, I had some really great food. Shout out to my mom for she's in her 80s now and still cooking for the family. I don't know how long we can expect her to keep doing that. It gets really hot in the kitchen sometimes, And I just tell her, hey, I'll buy the food if you don't want to cook it. I mean, I'd much rather have her food than ordering something. But me and my siblings will usually pull together some money, especially during Thanksgiving. We'll tell my mom, hey, pick one thing you want to make, but otherwise we'll just get a catering done, because it's not about like it's about the food, but it's about sharing the food with family, like regardless of who makes the food. You know what I mean? So we make it work. I was there last year for Thanksgiving. Hopefully, I'll be there next this coming year for Thanksgiving, and hopefully the entire family is available and and here with us. Like I said, don't take family for granted, especially older family, but any family, regardless of age, because you don't need to be old to pass away, right? I lost an older brother at he was about 52, 53 years old, so early 50s, and we lost him way too soon to health complications. So shout out to Nelson, who passed away and no longer with us, but we'll never forget Nelson. Um, one of the probably the tallest brother that I had. Nelson was about 6'5", and then I come to learn later that he got the height gene from, and some of my other brothers are really tall as well. Maybe not 6'5", uh, but we got that from my granddad. My dad's dad was really tall. Apparently, like he's 6'6" or 6'7" or something like that. Really, like, I mean, that's like really tall. I'm only about 5'10" on a good day. Yeah, I guess I didn't get the height gene, but I'm just fine with that. Like I'm okay with being 5'10". I think the world's a lot more suitable for somebody 5'10" than they are for somebody 6'7" and taller. So if you are 6'7" and taller, bless you. Hopefully, you are not self-conscious about your height. I know this world is not made for people your height, but just like everything else, we make it work, right? We still manage to keep ourselves with a smile. So, anyways, a little bit more of the hat. I'll show you a couple more photos, um, and just again, nothing about this hat was not to my liking. Again, the only trepidation I had with this hat is like, Luke, can you see yourself wearing this hat? Like you have to really be your Lukiest. I'm gonna just say that as a word. You have to really be your Lukiest to rock this hat and out in public. But I've done it. I've done it. I've gone on shopping and worn this hat, and I got some really great comments about this hat. It's just people say the darndest things. Especially kids. Um, anyway, I think this shows, it says made, handmade, and I believe it says 5X. Again, I don't really have a lot of I know Stetson uses this designation. They've used it for a long time to kind of rate the quality of the felt. I have no idea how standardized that quality, meaning is a Bar J 5X the same as a Stetson 5X, which is the same as another brand's 5X felt? I don't know. That'd probably be a question for Paul of Passion for Hats and PJ Murphy and Son to answer, as the only hatter we've had here, to date. And any other hatter, Morgan said she shared the channel with a hatter friend of hers. If you watching this, then maybe you can answer in the comments. If you don't ever come here live as a guest or as a participant, is there a standardization of the X value of felt? And what does it mean? Like, what does it mean to have a 5X versus a 7X or 8X or whatever the number goes up to, tight felt? And what's the cost implications, right? If that's something that can be divulged without that somebody's willing to comfortably share. I like to know that. And I'm sure if I like to know that, maybe my fellow hat nerds would like to know that. So I'll put that out there as a question for the day. What does the X value, is it standardized? And what does it really mean when it comes to the felt quality? I do know enough to say that the higher the X value, the better the felt. But beyond that, like, what are you getting at? Maybe that's something that when you get a custom made hat, there's like a sweet spot, right? Kind of like with big screen TVs. there might be a sweet spot where you get to a certain number of inches where you get the most bang for your buck, the most size for your buck. And that'd be a question I have for Paul and any of the other custom-made hatters. Maybe Kevin would even know that answer of what's the sweet spot on the X value when you're going to get a custom-made hat. So that's another question. Sometimes these videos are going to lead to more questions than answers, and that's what's fun about it. At least it's fun to me. So I'll go in here. I'll kind of show this. I won't spend a whole lot of time. I probably won't even read this in its entirety. But I did want to share this because I had good luck with Chat GPT in the past shows. So I'll go through this in about. I used Chat GPT like I did with the men's hats and Dalton connection that I went on yesterday's show. And just to say, hey, ChatGPT, tell me everything you know about Bar J hats. And I got some good information here. And some of this was probably pulled directly from, you can see the sources here. They're pulled directly from Mr. Johnson's, website directly. So shout out to David Johnson. David, I've never met you, but now, thanks to Kevin and his friend, I own one of your hats, and by all means, you make impeccable hats. So shout out to founder and master hatter at Bar J, David Johnson. So it says here, Las Vegas resident since 1961. Again, I don't know how true this is, but I'm assuming it is true because it's coming from David's website. And it says his journey began in 1988 when he started restoring his own hats in his mother's garage and soon expanded to crafting custom designs. So it says here, historic equipment. In 1988, Johnson acquired an entire assemblage of century-old hat-making machinery from a New York shop. Hey, shout out to New York. We got a New York connection between Vegas. With Vegas. I love it. I've not been to Vegas yet. By all means, I want to do that. I'm a fan of the UFC. I am also a fan, which, UFC has a headquarters in Vegas as well as a gym, an Apex gym. I want to check that out one day. I also want to check out the shop, the famous shop of Pawn Stars, right? Remember the Pawn Stars show that I believe is either still going or in syndication now. So you got a Chum-Lee and all the other cast and crew of the old man who's now passed away, but he's got two generations left. Running the shop, and then Chum-Lee was one of the fan favorites. Shout out to Chum-Lee and to the rest of the cast at Pawn Stars. Hopefully you guys are still around. If you're not, I'll still check out the store because I really love that show. Regardless of like a lot of people have a problem with the show because they think it's too staged. I have no problem with that. It's very similar to like biopics, and films based on a true story. They're gonna be dramatizations. I mean, they gotta make a lot of shows, and you can't always rely on the truth. Sometimes you have to rely on a script. And even though I go live here without a script, I do know the value of having a script. And they pull it off really well. I'm still engaged. So also they have really good celebrities come on there. We had Lex Luger, the wrestler, come on there one time. We had Dana White, the owner of the founder of one of the original founders and the face of the UFC, come in, and he's a fellow Vegas resident. There was a few other folks that came to the shop that I can't recall now, but was really cool to see those cameos. Anyway, it says from business launch from its humble origins, garage origins, Bar J opened a storefront on Spring Mountain Road in Las Vegas in 1989. It grew to become a local landmark and even listed with the Clark County Museums as a historical site, drawing visitors and offering tours. That's pretty cool. So I'll go over here. I won't read all this stuff, But one thing here, he says that they've historic and film quality replicas. So they've recreated virtually any hat from pictures or descriptions, including historically accurate styles for reenactments and film projects. For example, Tombstone. Shout out to Tombstone. What a great movie. Holy cows. Like everybody remembers Tombstone. I believe that was Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer were like the two major stars that I can recall from Tombstone. And especially everybody knows Val Kilmer as as Doc Holliday, right? Shout out to Val Kilmer, and he's no longer with us now. We just recently lost Val, and but we still have all the great works that he's left behind his catalog. A guy that probably had a reputation as being difficult to work with, but but man, what an actor! We had him, Holiday as Doc Holliday, right? Iconic. I'm your Huckleberry, right? Remember that? He also did Real Genius. That was probably the first film that I ever remember seeing Val Kilmer in. Um, Also, he did Top Gun, right? Alongside of Tom Cruise, he did both the original as well as the sequel. He had to come back, and I think they did voiceovers because I think at that point, because of the cancer, had lost his voice. And not to be forgotten was his probably like one of the more iconic portrayals of Jim Morrison, right? In The Doors, right? The film adaptation, he killed it in that. He was Jim Morrison. And I would have it's just something that you kind of used to Val Kilmer with the blonde hair, but he, I guess, dyed his hair or wore a wig, something he did, but he nailed it. He was Jim Morrison. He looked it. He was Jim Morrison. Again, that would not having never known Jim Morrison, but just known the music and seen the video. To me, he knocked that role out the park. I wonder if he won any awards. If he didn't, he should have. He just murdered that role. It was he was Jim Morrison, kind of like Jamie Foxx was Ray Charles in the movie, the biopic Ray, as well as Johnny Cash being portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix. Shout out to Joaquin Phoenix. I do have a tie to Joaquin Phoenix. My family's from Puerto Rico. Joaquin Phoenix was actually born in Puerto Rico. That's just a little factoid that a lot of people probably don't realize. But Joaquin is actually legitimately Puerto Rican. Was born on the island. So shout out to Joaquin, and shout out to River Phoenix, who we lost way too early. One of those the actors that was gone way too soon. So yeah, another connection was that Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker, and the Joker was also famously played beside Jack Nicholson, as well as Val Kilmer. Right, Val Kilmer did have a role as I believe he was the original. No, Michael Keaton was the original. Val Kilmer did that. I believe was the second Batman. So we had a lot of famous people playing Batman. So you had Michael Keaton, then Val Kilmer. You had George Clooney, as well as Christian Bale, and wasn't the Ben Affleck? Wasn't Ben Affleck one of the Batmans? You guys can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but just iconic portrayals, and obviously everybody remembers the Jokers. Heath Ledger. Obviously, you had wow, I want to say Jude Law, but it wasn't Jude Law. It was the other guy. Wow, sorry. You did have an iconic Joker, but everybody also, besides Joaquin Phoenix and Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight was, oh my gosh, he was just iconic. And again, another actor that we lost way too soon. So shout out to Heath Ledger and family. Great. He just rubber stamped that role, and followed up a tough act to follow. Anyway, you can read through this if you like. It just talks about some of the celebrity clients, and it's much more extensive than this. But he was personally authorized. David was personally authorized by Roy Rogers to craft these iconic hats for the Roy Rogers Museum. Shout out to Roy Rogers. So he's got some really big celebrity clientele, and apparently has a lot of ties to rodeos. That's probably a good source of business. I'll show you a photo here of David. Again, I pulled this, hopefully okay to pull this. This is from his website. That way you can kind of see the master hatter. And it looks like he's got a great gambler a hat on. That's another hat, right? I talked about hats that are missing from my collection. I'm missing a nice gambler. Maybe that might be that signature hat. Maybe it makes sense to make that signature hat either a top hat or a gambler hat. That blue and orange I talked about. I talked about teasing as a stingy brim, pork pie, or fedora hat. Another style is the gambler. That's an iconic style, man. And David here wearing it well. I'm assuming that it's one of his own. Looking really sharp. Great photo. Never met David, but maybe one day I will. And maybe I'll be wearing my D Bar J, and he'll hopefully recognize it right off the top. I just don't know how many of these hats he makes in these wild colors, but maybe he makes a lot of them. Given what Paul told us. That he's noticing that the younger generation, especially those in the United States and outside of the UK, are asking more and more for hats in the more out there colors, the more bright, vibrant colors. So that might just be like an evolution in hat wear, where folks are kind of they're putting aside the more traditional black, brown, and gray felts. And embracing more of these red, green, blue, and other more purple and other vibrant color felts. And I like it. I'm like, again, this hat is out there. And I got to think that, I guess that whatever, it caught my eye, and it also caught the eye of, somebody of other customers, because it seems to be a trend. So if that's something that you're noticing or you're wanting to see more, then definitely hit up D Bar J, hit up Paul at PJ Murphy and Son, and hit up Kevin. Kevin definitely has some of the out there colors. Actually, his signature hat is the mint green Borsalino, and I think now it's the mint green sky piece from his collection, and he has them in a variety of colors. I mean, I don't own any of them. I only own the D Bar J, but I have seen so many videos, and I've seen the customer testimonials from people that I know and trust on the Facebook groups, and they are sharp. Kevin sources his hats from D Bar J. Kevin sources his KTG line from felts from McGill in Canada. I don't know where D Bar J sources their felts. Paul also says he gets his felts from a variety of sources, depending on cost and purpose. So yeah, I don't know a whole lot, but that's why I'm hoping to get some of these folks. Who knows? Maybe David will see this one day and say, "Hey, let me come on your show." David, you are always welcome, especially now that I actually have one of your examples that I was lucky enough to get. Maybe we could have you on, David. I don't know you. I now know, and I now own one of your works, and by all means, one of the finest hats that I own. So thank you so much. Shout out to David Johnson, master hatter and founder of D Bar J. Again, I won't read all of this. You can kind of steal it if you want, but it talks more about some of his clients. It says customers include everyday folks, entertainers, rodeo stars, casino employees, and corporate groups. Notables wearing D Bar J hats include Charlie Daniels, Bill Clinton. Wow, Bill Clinton. Tony Curtis. Wow, Tony Curtis. That's awesome. And others. It says here special commissions their hats, even outfitted greeters at the Salt Lake City Winter Olympics in 2002. And look, goes through. We actually were just talking about like health issues. It goes, again, hopefully this is not disrespectful for David, but it says here, that Johnson's health declined in around 2005, leading to a temporary closure and even false reports of his death. Wow, so he got like the Paul McCartney treatment. I don't know why that happens, but I one day I'll get an answer as to why people do that kind of stuff. They put out false reports of somebody dying. I just don't. I think that's a little disrespectful if you ask me, but that's just me. But it looks like here it says he overcame his illness and returned to hat making with renewed energy. Shout out to David. Well done on coming back. I don't know the details of your health issue, but by all means, serious enough that you could not keep the store open for a little bit. But I'm glad you made it back. And it goes into here. It talks about his partnership and scale of work. Now, talk about scale. Now, again, I don't know if I don't know what this means in terms of like hats per day or hats per month, but it says Johnson estimates he has crafted over 50,000 hats over his career, a testament to his dedication and mastery. 50,000, that's a lot of hats, man. So chances are, if you're not able to commission a hat, maybe somebody else in the used market that needs to rehome their Bar J. I wholeheartedly recommend, if this hat is any indication of the overall quality at Bar J, then I can wholeheartedly recommend his work. And again, the hours and location were listed here. His shop is located at 5960 Topaz Street in Las Vegas, Nevada, with the zip code of 89120. So 89120 near McCarran Airport. Hours typically are Monday through Friday and sometimes Saturday with appointments available. And by all means, he is, a traveler. So you may have to kind of catch him at the right time if he's on his way to travel. But by all means, they talk about his satisfaction rating. Held a 4.6 rating on Yelp and TripAdvisor, with people praising the craftsmanship and friendly customer care. Hey, you gotta love that, right? We talked about, like I said, we do have a lot of great folks in this community. It's a small community, but I gotta imagine we also have, because I've run into them, you have some folks that are not so nice. You're gonna get them anywhere. It's nothing to do with them being into hats. Hats don't make you a jerk. Jerk behavior makes you a jerk. So like I mentioned that, if that's something that describes you, please change your ways if you can, or at least limit your interaction with your fellow hat nerds. Only because, like I said, we don't need jerks in this. Luckily, in my experience, it's been few and far between. We don't really get a lot of jerks. I haven't come across many myself. I'm always, like I said, I mentioned before, I try to be respectful even when I'm disrespected. I try to come across as respectful because, well, like I said, I try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And, unfortunately, it doesn't always get reciprocated, like I kind of rely on the psychological principle of the norm of reciprocity, right? I think that's if you study about the norm of reciprocity, people tend to try to return the favor when you do something for them. You're either like giving something with no strings attached, and that could just be a polite good morning or a smile. That's why when you smile, people tend to smile back, because it's that norm of reciprocity. It's kind of like, I don't know what I did to warrant Luke's smile, but I'm going to return it back, and yeah. In terms of like I said, in terms of reciprocity, again, I went live for 2 hours. I don't really ask for a whole lot, but if you're watching this, and you're not a subscriber and you're not hit the like button, just do me a favor. I guess you don't have to participate. You don't have to drop a comment, but if you do, I will try to get to all of them, when I can. But if you like this content and you like this Bar J, drop a comment. Otherwise, the only thing I'll ask of you is just please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the channel. If it doesn't end up growing, that's fine. If you really don't want to, no obligation, you can still watch. That's actually the best thing you can do. If you're watching this, the best thing, you already did it, which is you watched the channel. And I thank you already. I thank you in advance for any way that you engage with my channel. So shout out to all the folks that I mentioned here already. There's a lot more to come. this has just been an absolute pleasure. I didn't even have one person drop a comment, but I still feel like this was a worthwhile show. Um, and I look forward to you guys, catching it in syndication. So I think this is a good, I'm a little over 2 hours into the live stream. Today's hat of the day has been this Carmen Sandiego-style, very, very red, very, very loud Bar J custom hat that I got from the very cool, very nice Kevin Todd Gerber of Kevin's Hats and Guitars. So catch his Facebook group, catch his YouTube channel. Great guy to deal with. I think Kevin's to the point where I'm comfortable calling him a friend, even if he's doesn't consider me his friend. He just doesn't seem like he knows anybody but friends. Very, very, very pleasant personality. Shout out to you, Kevin. I appreciate this and all the other hats that you cut me a deal on. And this has been Hat Chat number 16, the Sweet 16. Man, we're like, before you know it, we will be at triple digits, and I have only you to thank for it. Thanks for giving me the energy, for doing this show. So just like that, I'm going to cut it off right here. So this has been Hat Chat number 16. This is Luke coming at you, and just in asking you, just an ask, please stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao.